has very limited time. He has some pressing commitments. So I would request all our dignitaries from the stage to kindly keep their deliberations to as short as possible. Coming up next, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to inform that BASF is a German multinational company, chemical company, and the largest chemical producer in the world. And may I now invite Dr. Detlef Kratz, President Group Research, BASF, to kindly present the global perspective. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together to welcome him.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much for the kind introduction. Can you hear me? Better. Yes. And I'm really honored to be here, dear Minister, dear distinguished guests, and I guess many, many colleagues in the chemical industry. I don't think I'm telling you anything new, that we are facing extremely challenging times nowadays. And I brought some slides along just to see if I can see them, or are they on the screen? Here they are. As a first slide, I've chosen a visual that I think depicts what it's all about. It's two hands holding our very valuable planet. And the hands actually are our hands. I mean, we as human beings have a lot to do with changing this ecosystem. But at the same hand, and maybe the flip side of the coin is, it's also in our hands through innovation and research to find solutions for the future. And it's also about connectivity, because connecting knowledge across the globe, across regions, is going to be part of the solution. And I'll come to that in a moment. The ultimate thing that we want to do is work on a sustainable future. And I'm not telling you anything new. BASF's purpose statement, I think, is pretty clear. We create chemistry for a sustainable future. And also you, in your branding, corporate branding, will have similar targets. But how is this going to happen? And what are we actually doing to achieve this? And for BASF, at least there are distinct targets. And you'll hear a little bit more about BASF. I'm sorry for that. I use BASF as a proxy for the chemical industry here because we are global. We have a huge portfolio of chemicals. And that's why I think it serves as a proxy. And to make this tangible, we've actually clustered our strategic goals of sustainability into 3 pillars. You see them here. They are all underpinned by distinct actual targets. It's not just wishful thinking, there are numbers behind this. And let me just guide you through these. So let's start with the greenhouse gas emissions. I think we all tend to have net zero greenhouse gas goals, be it in 2050, be it in 2070, be it in 2035. But are they achievable? I mean, can you truly imagine a world in 2050 where not a single ton of greenhouse gas, CO2, is emitted? And we are still feeding the population that is growing. We are still making the many chemistries that we need. If I have asked you to raise your hands, do you believe it? I wonder how many people would say, yep, that's going to come. 2050 is easy. Let's look at 2030. And that's much more tangible. And if you look at the number that is written here for BASF, 25% reduction of our greenhouse gas goals, what does that actually mean? Today we have 22 million tons. That's already quite a lot, scope 1 and 2 emissions. 25% is 6 million tons less in 8 years. It's not quite right, because we also want to grow. We actually need to halve the 20 million to 10. That means our specific carbon footprint goes from 0.6 tons of CO2 per ton of product to 0.3. That's next to nothing. And those of you in the petrochemicals know that making ethylene is already 1 ton. So that would not meet the target. So it's a huge, huge, huge effort we need to do. But at BASF, we're a scientific company. We ask ourselves, well, what are we really going to do? And I'll give you at least an indication of some of the answers. First of all, it's a lot about energy. 50% of the emissions, the 22 million tons I mentioned, are not from chemical origin. They are simply because we use fossil energy as a power and energy source. So if we greenify this, we already have half the target done. So it's an energy topic. We will complement this, obviously, with CO2-free technologies and even CO2 sequestration. But that's in the midterm. On the long term, That's exactly what we need to do. Let me move to the second pillar. It sounds so easy on paper to do a circular economy. I mean, it's a nice pictorial here, but it's highly complex. It's disruptive. Consider that industries now move together. A waste stream of one industry is becoming a raw material of another. That's completely new. Actually, the word waste does not exist in a circular economy. That means it's only raw material. But it means we have to completely reconsider the value chain, not only logistically, but technically, because we force new interfaces and new partnerships. And I like it that chemistry will play a role. Steel and chemistry, refining and chemistry, mobility and chemistry, waste management and chemistry. They all will come together. And that's very disruptive. And the last one. I mean, we're in the chemical industry, and we really have to diligently look at our portfolio. Chemicals are still, by many consumers, seen as dangerous, not helpful. It's rather unfortunate. So it's a lot about how we communicate this and what we do to make sure that the portfolio is consistently looked through and improved. And that's why we have our accelerator products that are deemed better toxicologically, safety-wise, and so on. And there's one overarching, or actually two overarching topics here in these pillars. First one, regulations. Now, countries all across the world are setting higher and higher targets and standards, regulatory targets. And we have to ask ourselves, are they achievable, not just some fuzzy numbers? And I think it's up to us to decide and really have an influence here. I mean, look at the Green Deal in Europe or the Chemical Strategy for Sustainability. Thousands of pages of documentation, and there's more to come with dossiers coming up. Now, don't get me wrong, we need a regulatory framework, but the regulations in the new world have to be simple, they have to be unambiguous, not conflicting, and they have to speed up investments because we really cannot waste time to save the planet. So I'm really asking that regulatory goes into a dialogue with the industry, and it's an industry that has a case to make, to talk and say what is really doable, because doability is part of sustainability. The other one is customers and consumers. You and I, you are asking for more sustainable products. Well, you need the transparency to decide what you are willing to pay for. BASF, for example, has captured this in the product carbon footprint for every single product we make. The customer can choose between one and the other. The one that is more sustainable, maybe slightly dearer, but more sustainable. So this transparency is important in our industry, and we have to get to common ground, not that it's conflicting. That's quite a difficult task, and we need a common consensus here. But let me move on and put this into what I would call the chemical framework. Now, I've titled this chart, "The Chemical Industry Takes the Leftovers." That sounds strange, maybe, but it's the business model we work in. Chemistry has never been the food market or the energy market. Over many years, decades actually, we've taken the leftovers. Like 100 years ago, it was a green economy, it was biomass. Then we moved to coal, you see it here on the chart, then to oil, and currently gas. Why? The reason is very simple. We were looking for carbon atoms and hydrogen atoms on availability, price, but also on the way we use them in the chemical industry. And gas is our most favorite now. Why? Because the stoichiometry is right. If you calculate your product footprint, it's typically 1 carbon and 3 hydrogens, very close to natural gas. That's part of our dilemma, in fact, that we need so much. BASF's actually footprint is like that. All other molecules are nice, but they give functionality. We need that. So carbon, where does it come from? Hydrogen, where does it come from? And where does the energy come from to convert it? That's the task. And that will be different because we're not allowed to use hydrocarbons anymore. Come back to the waste topic. And I'll focus on the key aspect of this, which is energy. And in my eyes, what we actually do is we convert energy into chemistry. That's why I've used this slogan here, energy is chemistry, and chemistry is energy. Actually, it's functionality. That's the task we do. So if we have abundant energy, we can do most anything, but it has to be renewable. Why? I already mentioned, if we electrify our industry, that's choice number 1. Number 2, we will be having to upgrade low energy feedstocks, waste, off-gases, biomass, even CO2, that will require far, far, far more energy than we can even perceive now, and it has to be renewable. It will be 3 to 4 times as much as today easily. And it makes a lot of sense then that as a company, BASF has decided to strategically change from focus on oil and gas to renewable energy. We've invested with other partners like Vattenfall and Ørsted into wind parks. Here, the largest offshore wind park in the North Sea. And we will need more because it's competing with other industries, mobility, steel, cement, and the like. So the ultimate question, if we want to save the planet, is, well, who gets the most of this? And I use one KPI, also thinking about regulation, to design this. It is the amount of renewable energy per saved ton of CO2. So simple. You don't need any more to prioritize your doing and your investments. Similar to what the US has done now with the IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act. Very simple. That's the way regulation should go, and then we as an industry can work on that. So those were the challenges, and I don't want to stop without talking about some solutions. And please forgive me, I'm responsible for group research at BASF, so I will talk about innovation and research and development. It's the solution, and it's part of the business model that we have to thrive for. I picked a chart. Maybe it's a bit provocative. You see here some countries' R&D spending of total industry as a percentage of GDP. Some countries are faring pretty well, putting more and more money into this. It's public and private, by the way, the money shown here. Take Germany, it's around, in actual numbers, 100 billion euros per year. BASF spent in R&D 2 billion, so 2% of this, that's big time. And it's a very profitable business model for us, I have to say. Now, India does not fare well on this chart, I have to say, but I have put this into perspective. The good news is public funding, in fact, is over-proportionally high in India, but industry spending in R&D is rather low. So a message I would like to give, spend more into the future, also as an industry, beef up research. And you have the possibilities. I mean, at BASF, we see this also in the business we do. We have 8 production plants, 2,300 people here. We have sales of 2.3 billion euros. And we have 2 wonderful research laboratories, one in Mumbai and one in Mangalore. And I can tell you one asset that India has is talent, because we are able to scout and look for fantastic talent out of the Indian academic institutions. And I think that is something that is what you can bank on. And one final thought, I think it's clear what we have to do. It's also about the how. In times past, it was individuals, and that's symbolic here, making inventions. Then came maybe industry and academia, take the ammonia process that BASF is renowned for. And even now industries come together, but that's not enough. The complexity of the task is much higher. Regulations, customers, regional aspects, but industry will play a role, and that's why I come back to the hands holding this world. Many hands can contribute to value for our planet. And the innovation ecosystem, I think, needs to be discussed more openly, how we work on this. And I leave you with the good news. The good news is, and it's in the tagline here, for chemistry it's good. The chemical industry will continue to play a leading role as an enabler for sustainability, and I hope I could give you some insights on that. And with that, thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, sir, for that informative presentation.